So on our webpage, if you click on recruiting and then click on for families, how do I ensure that my son gets exposure and the best opportunity to be recruited? This just gives kind of an overview in writing of some of the things you're going to hear and see in this video here today. But I'm just going to kind of give an overview of how do you best set up your kid for success? Or for players that are listening, how do you set yourself up for success? So the first thing is make sure you're playing for a competitive team that's playing good competition. We have been doing this for 10 years, and so I've had the opportunity to try a lot of different tournaments and get connected to different people, and I feel that we're playing a schedule that's as competitive as possible here in the Kansas City or Midwest. And so it's important that you're selecting programs that are going to ensure to give you guys good competition, because in order to play at the next level, you got to show that you're successful in playing against guys that are going to get there. The second thing is to make sure that the coaches that you're playing for in the program you select have a track record of connecting kids to college. You'll see on our alumni page, under college commitments, we have roughly 50 guys over the last 10 years that have had the opportunity to keep playing. And there's been more that have had those offers. What I tell kids and parents is, as incoming freshmen and sophomores, I hear from kids, and I understand this mentality that they just want to play college baseball. It doesn't matter to them where, doesn't matter what level, that they just want to keep playing as long as they can. But when I have conversations with my seniors as they approach graduation, that mindset changes significantly. Start to think about money and the cost of college. Start to think about the offers of where they're getting the opportunity to play versus where they want to be. Looking at where their friends are going to school, where a girlfriend might be going to school. Becoming aware of what degree programs you want to pursue and whether that school even has that to offer. So, the mindset of a player changes significantly throughout their high school year, at 4 years. At the end of the day, though, you need to have coaches that are connected, and you'll see through our history that we have that to offer. The thing that you need to do is become the best possible baseball player that you can. Then worry about being recruited. Freshmen and sophomores should not be getting tied up in the recruitment process unless you're elite in your age group. I go into a little bit about statistics here, and the likelihood of players getting to play beyond high school, it's minimal. But fortunately, we as an impact program have overcome those percentages significantly. But you need to get in the weight room. You need to be getting stronger and faster. If you're going to invest money before you really start investing money into going to individual showcases and things of that nature, you need to make sure you're strong, fast, and standing out against the competition. If you're blending in with those that are there, you're not gonna receive any opportunities or offers. You need to develop yourself first and foremost. Second, and there'll be a later video on this here about doing research. Just like someone who's actively looking for a job, they go out and read about companies, read about benefits, salary, current employees' references and what they have to say about the company, opportunity for advancement. Just like you do research for finding a job, you need to do the exact same for the college you want to go to. There'll be a whole video on doing research here that you'll read about and about College Baseball Hub, but you cannot sit on your heels. You need to go and do your research. Parents, you can absolutely assist, but your son needs to take the lead on this and really be involved in this process. Another thing is I'll show you an example of video, but video is a huge tool to sell yourself. A coach, even if we're connected and have a good reference, and they trust the coach that's telling them that you're a solid player, rightfully so, they're going to want to see what do you have to offer. And so you'll see some videos on our YouTube channel that I'll speak to, but you need to get those made, whether you do them yourself or you ask us to do them for you. This is huge, because when you email coaches or you create field level profile pages, which we'll talk about shortly, or your Twitter handles for your accounts, you need to have video to be able to highlight what you're doing beyond random game footage. So hopefully this is just a brief introduction, and we'll go deeper into each of these concepts. So one thing you'll hear me refer to often is a skills video. Um, Although game footage is good, often it doesn't capture what coaches want to see, which is a good depiction of mechanics as well as picking up velocity. Because just simply watching a video, it can be misleading to know how hard a guy's throwing or how hard they're hitting it. So that's good feedback. We utilize Pocket Radar embedded into our video to capture that. If you go to our YouTube page, you'll see some skills videos of players that have done this with us recently. If you're serious about college at all, for sure, for our juniors and seniors, this is a must. Sophomores, it's icing on the cake if you want to start early. But it also will be good for you to see your journey as you progress and get stronger. And so for our pitchers, we try to show from behind as well as the side all of their pitches multiple times out of the windup and the stretch. For hitters, we try to get you from the side as well as diagonally and embed that velocity. You'll notice that all these videos are short. They're anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes. The reality is that these coaches are not going to take more than that to watch you. You're either going to capture their interest in the first few reps or you're not. And so it's essential that we keep it short and sweet. And I like to embed, you'll see here with one of our players, their GPA, where they attend high school, height and weight, etc. And I won't play the video here, but you'll see that let's see if it will show us here. You'll see it embeds the radar for pitching. For our hitters, I think it's important that we have velo too. This is extremely important because when you send out these emails or when coaches reach out to me or vice versa, I reach out to them, they're always going to ask, I need to see what they got to offer. They're not simply, and they shouldn't just simply base it on someone's reference, but they're going to want to see, is it worthwhile to go and watch this kid play live? They're not going to gamble and roll the dice. There's too much technology and access now to do your recruiting and your background research before showing up to the game. So highly recommend using this. It's easy then in Twitter and on emails to link it to give easy access to coaches. So another great tool that we've begun to utilize in the last few years is Twitter. College coaches don't live on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook. Twitter is the place to be. And so what happens is we ultimately start to develop a following. Currently have 413 followers. Obviously there's parents and players, but coaches begin to follow us as I also follow them to start to build those connections. If we know certain players are interested in particular universities, when posting a highlight, we can also at that coach or that program to help visibility. But one thing we try to do is just capture highlights and post them here. And it's nice when you, as the player, have a Twitter account, because as you can see in this example, I can at the player. The player can then retweet if they'd like. I believe this player did that. So was able to highlight 2 of his hits from today. Also tag his high school program if they want to retweet that. If I'm a college coach and I follow Impact Athletes and I see this and there's something I notice about the player that I like, I can click on his account and I can follow him. I can also direct message him and send a message to the player if I'm interested. And so it just creates connectivity in ways that haven't been able to be achieved previously. It also starts to allow the player to create, for lack of better words, a resume portfolio of some of their highlights from their seasons, both high school and summer. And so I would love for all of our players to create a Twitter account, begin following Impact Athletes, so that when we have highlights to share that we're able to tag you, or if you're able to share them yourself. So another way that both our program as well as players have secured opportunities to play beyond high school at the collegiate level is through a platform called Field Level. It's free for me as a coach. It's also free for players. You can pay for an upgraded version. I don't know if it's worth its value or not. But this is pretty much I'm gonna model for you how we utilize this platform. I will say I tend to see D2, D3, NAIA, and JUCOs posting on here, and they tend to be looking for active seniors. They will start to dip into the previous classes. So one thing that you do, or I do, for our unsigned seniors throughout their senior season is I go to recruiting needs. And then it's pretty cool because it allows me to filter by class. So for this entire last year, I've been filtering by 2022. You can select which colleges or what state. I just do everything. And then if I have it narrowed down to a few players I'm trying to find opportunities for, I can filter by position. However, I'm going to leave all those off except for 2022. And then typically what I do is create a screen recording just like you're watching here, and I send this to our players. The great thing I can do is, let's just say I had an uncommitted shortstop. After I send this out to the seniors, I say, please let me know if there's any of these that you're interested in. If my shortstop told me he was interested in Danville Area Community College in Illinois, I can click on that, and then I can promote an athlete. I can select from our roster the athlete, and then I can even write a personal note to the coach. I then go ahead and hit send. It gets into that coach's inbox, but I also let the player know who I've promoted them to, so they could also follow up with that coach as well. We'll be talking about what to include in an email when sending it to a coach, and that would be a great time to do so, is just to follow up off of field level, not just purely rely on them to check their inbox in this platform. So this is an extremely effective tool. In our most recent 2022 grad class, we had a catcher sign with Lancaster out of Pennsylvania. We had a pitcher sign with Central Christian out of Kansas, and then finally a two-way player with Missouri Valley. And in all three of those instances, the primary function for recruiting was simply off of this website. So I hope that our families find this page on our website to be helpful for many reasons. And again, to get there, you go to alumni, college commitments. And what I hope you pull away from this is two things. One, to see where actively impact players are playing at, because once we have kids playing there, that creates connections for us to be able to reach out for future players. Two, I need to go back and fully update every player's recruitment journey, but I tried to put on here how these players were seen. What you'll find is that it varies for everyone. We have a mix of some kids that were seen through their high school baseball programs. We have other kids that went directly to team camps or individual camps. Some then got followed through PBR showcases after they had been seen. An example of that would be Hudson Leach. Northwest has seen some kids through high school baseball. Phil Brenneman's a great example of going to a winter camp at Northwest and performing well. If I have close relationships with some of the universities, they'll come out to our practices, or I'll send video of players and try to get them to come out to our games. That's been the case for many of our Rockhurst players. Our guys that have been recruited and signed with UCM, many of them have attended as individuals their camps to start to develop that relationship and get seen. And then we've either played in their summer tournaments, or we do kind of a college rotation in the fall and play on campuses, just impact versus impact in front of those coaches that have expressed interest in our players. So that's been successful as well. As you go down the list here, you'll see a lot recruited through field level. Down here, we've also had some players just simply reach out to universities they were interested in and send a skills video to those coaches. And that has been the primary means in which the coach has seen them play. So that's been highly effective as well. I do think it's important for you to see what I mean by skills video, and I'll show that to you here shortly. So one tool that I find to be very helpful for students, student athletes, and families is collegebaseballhub.com. part of the struggle of figuring out where you want to play, where can you play, is just knowing what's available and out there. And so this is honestly a great place to start, and it's especially helpful and useful prior to going to tournaments in certain areas to see, hey, what schools are nearby where we're playing this weekend, and do some research on those schools to see if I have any interest in them. So, for instance, this weekend we're specifically in uh, Pitt State and Emporia State, Baker and Ottawa, and so I'm on their D2 tab. I click on D2 schools and it brings up this map here, and you can see down here Pitt State just at the very bottom. Emporia State's the E. So if I'm a player, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go research Pitt State, Washburn, Emporia, and Newman, which is in Wichita. I'm also going to go ahead and check out the D3 schools in this area, see if there's anything that's nearby. Sorry for the delay. And I see, okay, there's not a tremendous amount of D3s in in the Kansas area. So I'm going to go check NAIA. I wish Junior College had a map on here too. Unfortunately, they do not. But just doing homework through Google should be helpful as well. But for some reason, it's not loading. Oh, there we go. And I see that relatively in this area, we have some schools near Wichita area, Ottawa University and Baker's obviously two places we're playing at. And what I need to do is do some homework. So I need to figure out what kind of degrees there's Friends University, we'll just use them as an example. So I go to their website, I try to figure out, is this a place where I'd even want to go to school? So I might look into their academics, click on majors and degrees. Do they even have programs I'm interested in? Because the reality, guys, is that baseball is only going to last so long. Needs to be a path to our careers beyond baseball. So I can see what they have here to offer, see if any of it's of interest to me. And then I can kind of dive into trying to find their activities. So that's probably on this page, I'm having a hard time finding it. So what I would do is just go to Friends, University, Baseball. And the next thing I want to do is dive into their program. So I might look at things like their roster. How many guys do they carry? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. And then I notice there's a bunch of guys without numbers. And so typically this could be a situation where they maybe have a JV team, but we're looking at about a 50-man roster. One of the things I'll definitely talk about is the size of rosters in college baseball have exploded. It's not rare to see 50 to 80 guys on a roster. And so you need to do your homework to see what you're going to be competing with. Not all programs are created equal. And so you really need to analyze, what's the likelihood of me actually playing when I get there. Another thing I would highly recommend is looking at the positions. So, for instance, on this team at Friends University, they have one catcher. If I'm a catcher, this might be a great place to target. However, if I'm an infielder, take a look at how many infielders they got. Outfielder, right now they got 8 guys playing outfield. And again, this is not uncommon. But the next thing I would also look at is what is the age of these players? Do they have a lot of juniors and seniors, and will I be able to walk in and compete when they're gone? Or are they loaded with freshmen and sophomores? Another thing I look at too, this example doesn't give me a tremendous amount of information. A lot of times they'll show their high school or if they're coming from junior college. And then here they just show hometown. But that's another thing that I want to look at because I want to analyze, are they recruiting from high schools? Are they recruiting primarily from junior colleges or both? An example is I have a player that is very interested in a certain university, but most of their lineup and roster are junior colleges. And so for him to target that out of high school may not be the best approach. So again, just to summarize, using these maps to figure out where am I going to play this upcoming weekend, who's in the nearby area, doing research on those universities, and then actively reaching out to those coaches and sending emails. And I'm going to provide a template and some good examples of what that could look like to make those contacts. This is huge. You cannot just show up to tournaments and hope people are going to be there to see you. You need to actively be promoting yourself and doing research on the universities. Another thing I would look at is the coaching staff. So when you build these emails, you want to know, who are these guys? How long have they been there? What's their records been like? Have they developed players? Have players been drafted out of their schools? What are their accomplishments? That's all important information, and you can show that you've done your research in your email by mentioning little blurbs about that, things that stood out to you. So really on this one, the only one we can really see much about is our head coach. So when writing coaches' emails, the first thing you have to understand is that these coaches are going to get anywhere from probably 10 to 20 players reaching out to them daily. And so the example I'm going to give you is excellent, but it also could be shored up and shrunk. As us that work in the business world and get, sometimes hundreds of emails a day, for us to read through an email of this length is probably going to be slim. We're going to skim, but you definitely want to highlight certain things. So this player identifies what high school he goes to, which university he's reaching out to. He highlights immediately some of the things, the measurables that stand out. Arm strength from the outfield, his pop time, his 60-yard dash times, as well as his exit velocity. These are all things that we're able to help measure as well through our skills video. And then obviously this would be a great place to link that skills video to verify and show that that's legit and that the player's not just making that up. What this player does a great job of as well is highlighting where he had played recently, why he had developed interest in their program, noticing that they were in attendance, and then that he filled out the player recruiting questionnaire on their website. That's also an important tool to do, as you want to put yourself on their radar, and many universities have a questionnaire or a recruiting form that you can fill out. He does a great job of linking, providing links below to his field level profile as well as his virtual combine. And then he also makes note of any other opportunities that he can be seen at, and then provides references both from his high school coach as well as his summer coach. So this is a very comprehensive email that sets the coach up for success to assess whether this is a player they're interested in, and then be able to talk to the player about what are the best next steps to pursue if this is an opportunity, whether the coach is ready at that point to pursue an offer, or if he wants the player to come out for a visit or to go see him play in person. This is these emails are essential prior to going to play in a tournament or prior to attending a camp, or just to gauge general interest. Verification through video of the claims of the measurables that you have, references, where you can be seen. All of these are important things to do. One of the last things I wanted to hit on for you guys, just to give you perspective and understanding too, is please do not view the different associations of baseball as vertical, meaning JUCO is not the lowest level of baseball, then followed by NAIA, D3, D2, D1. It's absolutely not the case. It's natural for our brains to think that way, but it's not. Example, UCM, as a Division II, you might make the assumption that every D1 is better than any D2. Not the case. UCM could easily go and compete with any other D1 team in the nation. There are junior colleges that could go out and beat Division I teams. And so this whole mindset of D1 or bust mentality for families and kids needs to end. What it's about is finding the best opportunity, a place that's going to help you achieve the degree that you want, that you have a chance to come in and play, that you'll be happy at that school. Do completely disregard what quote unquote level of baseball that it is. So I want to indicate that. Another thing I want you to know is the size of the rosters. Many of the schools, UCM as an example, has 59 players on the roster. I've seen rosters of up to 80. And so I talked about this on a previous one, but just knowing what you're walking into and how many guys you're competing with is important. When I played at Georgia Tech, we had 35 guys on the roster. That's no longer the norm. The other thing you have to realize too is I've been in Kansas City for roughly a little over 10 years now. When I first moved here 5 to 10 years ago, there was maybe 5 players citywide that had signed a Division I opportunity to play. Now you can look around at a lot of our high schools, Liberty North, some of the Lee Summits or Ray Peck's, Staley's occasionally, and they'll have 4 or 5 guys on their roster that have signed Division I, and some of those guys as early as freshman or sophomore year. What I challenge you to do is go and look at those guys and where they're at now. Are they still at that university? Did they even make it to that university in the first place? Are they playing, or are they just one of 60 guys on the roster? And you have to ask yourself, what's going to satisfy you? What's going to make you happy? A good example was my journey and my brother's journey. I chose to go to Georgia Tech. I sat for 2 years behind Matt Wieters, a first-round catcher. I knew he was there when I signed. And that's a choice I made and had to deal with that. After playing every game my whole life and not playing much the first 2 years, it was trying and it was testing of my commitment. My brother, on the other hand, although a much better baseball player, he chose to go to Cal Poly. And Cal Poly was a Division I program that often was, at the time, not making the playoffs, playing in the Big West. But he had the opportunity to come in right as a freshman and play right away, which was a huge boost to his career and development. And so when you're analyzing programs, you got to think about roster size. You got to disregard what level, per se, it's at, and just think about how successful are they? Are they a successful program or not? What is their coach's track record of moving guys along if you do have aspirations past college? These are all important things to consider. And then the last thing I'll say, too, is the reality for high schoolers these days, especially in the last few years, is that Division I's are bringing on more players than they ever had. For instance, Georgia Tech, our recruiting class was 10 every year, 10 players roughly. It's not unheard of now to have 15, 20, 25 guys coming in. But some of these guys are getting cut before they ever even step foot on campus. Some are getting cut after fall ball. And so when you look around at your high school teammates and you see their level of play and you compare yourself and say, I think I can play at a Division I school. The D1 commits that are happening now aren't what it was 5-10 years ago. So many more getting opportunities and then being cut or sitting on rosters of 70 to 80 kids. And so that you can see this by looking at the transfer portal. There are thousands of players in the transfer portal looking to leave their school and go somewhere else. So now you're not only competing with other high schoolers for opportunity, but coaches are looking in the transfer portal to look for other players, guys that are 1, 2, 3 years older than you, that have more experience. To connect it to the business world, it'd be like a new grad straight out of college competing with people who have had 1, 2, 3, 4 years of experience. It's more challenging than ever. And so definitely keep all that in consideration when assessing your ability. And if you want honest feedback from our coaches, we'd be happy to give that to you as well.